Well, welcome, Will, and thanks for joining us on the Crexi Podcast. It's an insider's look at all things commercial real estate. Each week, we sit down with the CRE experts to uncover trends, insights, and strategies shaping the industry. So definitely excited to have you on here. I'm Rayelle Calvert, and we are thrilled to sit down with you, Will. A little bit about Will before we dive in is Will. He is CCIM and CPM certified. He's a commercial real estate broker, property management executive, educator, and host of the Vets in Real Estate podcast. So a fellow podcast host. He is based in the good old Red River, San Antonio, Texas. Will serves as managing director at Browning Commercial and is the founder of Crossed Sabers Asset Management, a firm based on running better properties through disciplined asset and property management strategies. With experience spanning brokerage, asset management, and operations, Will specializes in office and industrial properties, advising investors, owners, and business operators across the entire great state of Texas. In addition to brokerage and management, Will is a CCIM and IREM instructor and adjunct professor who teaches commercial real estate finance, investment analyst, and market strategy. He is very passionate about developing the next generation of commercial real estate professionals. So, as we say, he's not gatekeeping his industry knowledge. Will also host the Vets in Real Estate podcast, as I mentioned, and a platform dedicated to helping military veterans successfully transition into careers in real estate. Will, that was a mouthful because you are so well versed in the industry. So welcome to the podcast.
Well, appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for having me. It's an honor.
It's an honor to have you. And hey, we got a lot to dive into today. So let's kickstart things. And I know we covered your background, and I know we have a lot of information on things you've accomplished and done, but I'd love to hear directly from you just more about your career path, and if you can teach us and tell us some of the lessons that you've learned along the way.
Yeah, I mean, I wish it was all deliberate, but I think a lot of it's just been kind of dumb luck and the right place at the right time. I, right out of high school, joined the Army and honestly was trying to be a pilot until I found out I was non-qualified to fly and got to spend the rest of the time in the military waiting for the contract to end. We had we call them a command financial specialist, and generally they're the person that's teaching the young soldier not to go buy a Camaro for 36% interest rate, how to balance a checkbook, and yes, you have to pay bills. Those are generally the early financial coaching stuff, but they actually did a presentation on really rich dad, poor dad-esque, here's real estate investing. And I remember sitting there as a young, private first class making $1,200 a month. And here's this E6 who's got 20 something years, and he's telling us that he's making more money in his real estate investings than he was in his military career. And I was like, well, this guy's a normal guy. There's got to be something to this. I wonder if I could do the same thing, have a military career, but yet have this wealth generator outside. And from there, all he talked about was either selling houses or flipping houses. So I was like, well, I don't think I can sell houses. So maybe I'll be the house flipper. I'll go do that side of things. And as the GI Bill had changed, I was piecing together a degree. And when the GI Bill changed, they were like, we'll pay you to go to school. I was like, well, my contract's coming up. Let's get out. Let's go get a degree in real estate finance, and I'll go be the smartest house flipper there ever is. And that was honestly the whole goal, was I was going to get out, get my degree, go back in as a commissioned officer, still live, well below my means, and just invest in homes and kind of follow that house hacking kind of mindset. But it was when I got into undergrad, all of a sudden I realized, hey, these shopping centers and these office buildings, people broker those and people own those as well, which I never thought anything about all that. So that was really kind of got me down the path, was, that command financial specialist who probably, I couldn't tell you his name, he probably can't remember me, but was such a huge impact on me going down this path and really finding just dumb luck to find myself in the industry, and found out it was a really great fit.
Wow. And it's so interesting too, right? Because you have so many TV shows that are simply about the house flipping world now. So It sounds like you were in the game before they thought, let's follow people around flipping houses and make it look super fun. But sounds like you got in at the right time. It's become your career and you seem to be extremely passionate about it, Will. So shout out to
Right.
that command leader. So you talked a little bit about what you were doing before the industry, and you kind of touched on accidentally falling into it, which I think is kind of common for a lot of brokers that I've spoken to, and you hear their background and their story. When you first started to learn about real estate, what did you think the industry looked like? Like, did your perception change the longer you spent time in it, or talk to us about that?
Yeah, I think so. I say I was blessed as I got out of the Army was in 2010. So that's when I started coming into the industry, which was right after, the last big bubble that we had, the great financial crisis. So I think I was very lucky in that I saw all the hoopla that went on through the crash. And then I was really sitting down, and my first clients ever were the ones that made it through the crash. They made it through, and I was very, blessed, or maybe just smart enough, or just asked the right question, was to say, how did you make it? And 9 other people didn't. What happened? The
Yeah.
one thing that was interesting over and over and over as we keep talking to these investors, well, we managed our leverage. We did all this. So what I learned very quickly was all the, let me go out there with the Ferrari and the expensive car and all the kind of stuff they're selling lifestyle. The ones that truly were doing extremely well were riding through the storm, still have a business today, had a business 30 years beforehand, were the ones that were really disciplined about what they went out. They drove, regular cars, sometimes used, beat up. It wasn't nearly as flashy as what sometimes those investment gurus make it sound like. But they were talking, oh yeah, we
Yeah.
come in, we buy it at 40, 50% LTV, we put money into it, we balance it, we're managing our debt the entire time. And when the industry collapsed, I had $8 a square foot. I could go below the rest of the competition because I managed my debt. So that's why our centers were 90, 95% full when the market was at 60 or 70. And I think that was such an eye-opening way of looking at it, was that it wasn't flashy, it wasn't sexy, it was just discipline.
And I think that it's in most industries, right? It's you got to remain disciplined to reap the reward, and it seems like you've been able to do that since your entire point. So obviously, a perception that led to success for you. Um, do you think in the early years that there were gaps between what you thought you knew versus what you ended up learning, or like what was that process? Between the gaps of what you went into it knowing from your command or what you're exposed to early on versus being in the grunt work of it, what you actually learned.
Yeah. So, I mean, flipping houses to managing, class A medical buildings, I mean, drastically different, right? There was no correlation. What I thought was interesting, and I think because I started in property management, I think what worked really well with property management was that in the military, I maintained helicopters. The
Okay.
principles of management was the same. Now, building HVAC versus a missile rack, obviously those are different components. They don't do the same thing. God hope they don't do the same thing. The principles of preventative maintenance checks, making sure you have the right certifications to go out there and work, all those principles really transitioned extremely well for the military into property management. I think the one thing that I was really weak on was really the finance side. I was never a math genius starting off, and that was one of the things I think I really struggled with early in my career, which is why I chose to do some of the certifications, educations I did. Was I really realized that was a gap in kind of my career, and really went back to some advice my dad gave me as I was going into the military. He gave me a handful of advice that he was military prior to that. But one of the things that he had said was to sit down and look at the old guys that are out there, look at what schools, what commands, what things they've done, realize times change, but some of those core aspects are always going to be the case. So in the military was they all were recruiter, they all went to drill sergeant school, they all did those things to promote, to make it, those higher ranks. Well, what was it in commercial real estate that we saw them do the same thing? So instead of drill sergeant school, it was CCIM. Instead of recruiting, it was doing the certified property manager. It was going through those same courses and finding what the folks that have found success long term, not just schools, but just actions and behaviors. And I think that's one of the things that really closed those gaps for me very quickly, because I didn't know what I didn't know. And I would say the longer I've been in, I realize the more and more I don't know.
And always be learning, as they say, right? Similar in that respect. I have a property management background as well, so I can relate to a lot of what you've been saying, Will, and even the flipping of the houses and the property management background, the attention to detail that you have to maintain, I'm sure has lent itself very well to the brokerage side of things as well. So let's talk about those designations a little bit more because you have a plethora of them, but you pursued both your CCIM and CPM, excuse me, designations relatively early in your career. Was it your dad's advice, or what made you prioritize education and credentials? And I mean, it sounds like that investment has definitely paid off, but tell us how so.
Yeah, so I think that was a lot of it was early on. I was blessed that dad gave me that advice early on, not in the industry, never touched the industry, but he just kind of gave me that advice. I really took it to heart. And then in undergrad, I think the other thing that was very interesting was that the university I went to had a real estate finance degree, and all they did was really just pour CCIMs through the curriculum. So every guest speaker we had, there were always a CCIM. So early, really early on, all I ever saw success look like was somebody with a CCIM. And, now that I've been out there, I've seen those that don't have a CCIM that has found success and all that. But early on, that was all that it was. And knowing that, especially for me, the math wasn't my strongest suit. I knew I needed to find those that were going to really dive into the math. I joke oftentimes that when I came out of the Army going into my undergrad, I didn't take the remedial math class. I didn't take the remedial math class where you color the duckies the farmer had. Like it was bad. It was not my skill set, and being self-aware enough to really dive in, work on that. I didn't realize finance meant math when I got a degree starting off out of the Army. Had no idea what I was walking into, and really kind of honing in. So the education, I went and got my CPM first, and I was in property management. It made the most sense at that point, and really kind of dove into that, and realizing that I wanted to see the entire picture. Understood operations. I didn't know the brokerage side nearly as well. And that's where I think going through working on the CCIM, opening my eyes to that side, the underwriting, the asset management, really changed a lot of that. And honestly, week or so I got back from testing in Atlanta for my CCIM, our senior VP called and said, "Hey, congratulations. We've never had a property manager get their CCIM. Why in the world did you do it?" And I basically said, "Hey, I don't know that side of the world. I need to understand that if I'm going to be a great property manager, I've got to understand what the asset managers are looking. I've got to understand what the leasing folks are looking at." And he was like, "That's interesting. Give me a week or two and I'm going to call you back." Now, this is like my boss's 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 boss. Like, he shouldn't be calling me or having conversations. And when that came through, they kind of created a position for me where I ended up managing acquisitions for North America. And it completely changed, but it was, hey, we need somebody who understands the math and the operations side of it. It really was one of those designations and accommodations and conversations that really kind of elevated me, where we're doing, hundreds of millions of dollars a year worth of transactions across the country. And for being 4 or 5 years into the industry, I was seeing things I shouldn't have seen at that young of a career. And it really was, I would credit a lot of it was to the CPM and to the CCIM. That my first boss even told me the only reason we hired you was because you're already sitting for your CPM. And literally the week before I hired with them, I went and tested, knowing that it was already in place. And that, hey, you're 3 years in, you've already got it. We've got people with 20 years that haven't even worked on it. That says something about who you are.
Yeah. And that was going to be my takeaway from you sharing that too, is the fact that your intention was to go out there and simply be the best at your current role you could be. And you were already, they identified that in you, that this is somebody that has a strong work ethic, isn't always going to better himself and his career. And you paved a way to a brand new role. So that's amazing. When you look back at your path, what's one decision, if you can try to narrow it down? I know this is always a tough question. One decision or experience that had one of the, if not the biggest impact on where you currently sit today?
There's a lot of them, and I'm going to get sappy on this one, but I'd honestly say marrying my
I
wife,
don't have my tissue.
right? Make sure she sees this episode. No, but I would say marrying my wife. I got extremely blessed to meet her. I met her as the company I was with was selling everything and moving to Houston. And I met her about 3 weeks into the announcement that was happening, and I knew right away she was going to be it. I was going to marry her. I knew from early on, and I did something I told myself I would never do. I'm going to stay for a girl. I'm going to stay in San Antonio. I'm going to go find this other job, and I ultimately did. I found the job that we talked about, that hired me when I had my CPM and all that. Stayed there, and she's pushed and challenged me to do things differently. Of course, we've got kids now together. That's obviously changed a lot of that as well, but really kind of her coaching and guidance. And we've found it's funny is she's in airport management, and me being a former aircraft maintenance guy, we obviously clicked on that very quickly. But when I was working in economic development for a shutdown Air Force base, they threw me in charge of leasing for aircraft or for airfield. So they're talking language I didn't understand. So quickly, I'm calling my wife, hey, what does this look? What does this mean? We get to where the VP over the airport, he goes, wait a minute, you sound like an idiot 2 weeks ago in this meeting. Now you're speaking the language. Like, what is it? Oh, I'm a good study. That's BS. That's not what it is. How'd you know? And then, hey, my wife is actually coaching me. She's over here at San Antonio International. And then what's been even more fun is that as I left that airfield, she's now the director of that airfield. So a lot of the stuff when I was working on, and then when I left into a new role, she actually picked up about a year or so afterwards, picked up some of that stuff. So it's been fun how our careers have oddly connected in ways that we would have never thought. Who'd have thought a real estate broker and an airport manager would have our careers, cross as much as they have, but they certainly have.
That's amazing. Such a unique story, right? And the fact that she had such a strong impact in not only your knowledge, but it sounds like just your discipline and commitment to the industry is beautiful. Well, with that in mind, I think that's a perfect segue into a little bit more about what you do, and this kind of touches back to your military background. Shout out to that world. My brother was former military as well. But transitioning from veterans, transitioning to CRE, why that matters, and how do you support them in that transition?
Yeah. I think a lot of it came from when I transitioned, I really felt alone. I didn't know anybody else that was there, and I finally got connected with a guy who was a Marine, graduated from the same university I did about a semester beforehand. And I credit a lot to Keith that we would meet roughly quarterly, and it was that friendly military competition. Like, I wanted to beat him and he wanted to beat me, but we also didn't want to tear each other down. So we were direct competitors for a lot of things, but we also got together and shared notes. And we even got to the point we raced to see who was going to be the first one to get a CCIM, and I won that one. And then and then it's going to be who was going to get their broker's license first. Well, Keith beat me to that one. And having that kind of connection was great for me. But I also realized that as I progressed outside of that and we kind of changed roles, there really wasn't more of that. And as we started talking to other veterans out there, we realized there wasn't that kind of coaching and mentorship. And even coming from the military, that's all it is. You're coaching, mentoring, you're growing, and really your legacy as a leader is how well do your soldiers do. That wasn't the way that we found really real estate or really the civilian world. And I got connected with a group called Veterati, and they were a really cool platform. I wish they were still around, but it was really if I want to invest in veterans or I want to mentor veterans, they would calendar invite, put it together, you'd connect, they'd make a phone call, everybody would come together. It was a really kind of cool concept. So as I was mentoring with that, everybody kept calling, was like, hey, I want to buy a house. I want to be a residential agent. I want to be an appraiser. And I'm like, I have no idea how to do any of those things. I was a property manager, an asset manager, and a broker. That's not my world. And talking to somebody else that was there in our office, kind of just venting my frustration, he's like, well, why don't you know the questions to ask? Why don't you do a podcast? I was, you're crazy. I'm not going to get up there and do a podcast. I'm not going to sit down and do nobody wants to look at my face and hear my voice like that. That's absurd. And it took about 2 years and him kind of pushing and prodding over the years saying, do it. It's needed. You see the need, the question. Yeah. So about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, we started the process of putting the podcast together, putting it all there. And I think we're now about 1.5 years in or so where we're interviewing, obviously 60, 70 odd veterans that have transitioned to all forms of real estate. So not just commercial, but what does that look like? What have been the wins? What have been the losses? What are the things that a veteran can talk to another veteran about, and we speak that same language and really try to build that community. And we're hoping to build that out even further. This year, the goal is to actually get a book out that's going to talk about that transition process, what it looks like, what career fields look like. Because I think that's a lot of it was that I thought I was going to be a house flipper. I didn't know commercial real estate was a thing. And in hindsight, I probably shouldn't have been an appraiser. I'm too nerdy to be a broker. I like the nerdy aspect of appraisal. That would have been where I really should have fit, but I had no idea that was even something. So we're trying to build that out. And then the goal is to ultimately have, we jokingly call it RETAP, Real Estate Transition Assistance Program. Is the idea is that when you're 24 months out, here's what real estate is. Here are all the careers you can find in real estate. You're getting ready to start transitioning. Here's the things to look at. Now that you're a year out, you should decide residential, commercial, lending, whatever it is. Let's start working on licensing. Here's what you go. And then once you finally get out, you've already got all this time built. You're already building your business 2 years out, and then change that ramp up. And if you go to a large brokerage, you go to a Marcus & Millichaps, you go to a KW, they've got training programs, but the vast majority of those brokerages that are out there are going to be smaller and boutique. They don't have that training opportunity. So that's where we want to be able to step in and help kind of that 4-year period, 2 years before you get out, 2 years after you've gotten out, and help train those service members into this new career. And that's the long-term goal. We'll get there, in the next handful of years. But that's ultimately the vision we'd love to see and build a community around. Hey, I'm getting out. I want to be a commercial broker. We'll go call Keith, go call Will, go call Mark. They can help you. They've already done it, and build that kind of community that just isn't out there.
And the term, the name, the RETAP is very catchy as well. So it lends itself well there. When a veteran is thinking about getting into commercial real estate, what's the very first thing that they even need to understand about how the industry works?
It's lonely, and it's what you kill what you eat. I think that's the biggest thing is just as a sales role, you're hyper competitive. The guy in the cubicle or the gal in the cubicle next to you is competing for the same book of business you have. And from the military, we're used to competing, but we're also used to making sure everybody wins. That's not always the case, depending on the brokerage you go to inside the industry. They could be a win all, and they don't care what happens to the folks next to them. Not that every brokerage is that way, right? But some are. Coming in, understanding that right away, that structure is no longer there. I knew when I came in, I knew everything I had to do to make it to become a sergeant major of the Army. If I was going to become that, I had to do the work. In real estate, that game plan's not there. That pathway isn't there. Tricks and tips and ways to build the business, but it's also different for each person, which is drastically different from the way the military is set up. So I think that's a lot of where military struggle is the lack of function, the lack of formality in civilian life, and then in brokerage altogether. And then the fact that you kill what you eat. There's no more first and the 15th paycheck. It's you didn't close anything for 3 months. All right, you're going to start getting hungry, and you're going to have to go out there and make a deal happen. It may not be the deal you wanted, but you're going to have to go out there and make a deal happen.
Yeah, especially if you have, like you said, a family to take care of, and it's not for the weak, they say. But you bring up a great point, and it kind of brings me to my next question. Veterans are used to not only that structure, but like you said, a hierarchy, clear missions, really a set out path as far as what success is identified as, right? Commercial real estate, especially the brokerage side of things, can be the entirely different, complete opposite of that. So how do you help veterans not only know that going into it, but how do you help them kind of cope with that or navigate that transition, if you will?
I think one of the things we've noticed, especially as veterans and as we've done, 60, 70, interviews now, and I thought one of it's maybe therapy for me because I realized that I wasn't weird. Everybody goes through the same thing, which I think is helpful there. But we've noticed that as you transition to the military, you lose purpose. You're used to the guys and the gals that are next to you. You're used to a mission that's got to get done. And all of a sudden, for the first time in, 3 years, 4 years, 20 years, you're asked to be selfish. And selflessness is one of the core values regardless of what service you're in. Selfless service is one of those core values. So suddenly you come out with nobody to serve but yourself, and it's weird. It really is weird. You don't think of it that way. Even myself, I don't think of myself as selfless. I don't think of it that way, but yet as you come out, it really smacks you that life is different. And the biggest thing we've noticed is that you see some veterans that just never make it. And my thought and theory on this is that it's because they never found the purpose. They never found what that service looked like after they got out. But we've seen the same thing with all the interviews we've done. The moment they realize who they're now serving, who their goal is to serve, once they figure that out and that clicks, that's where things grow. That's when you see their business just go tenfold. I mean, almost overnight sometimes, because they found that purpose, who they're going after. A lot of times it's clients. Sometimes it's going to be community. It's going to be other things that's there. Each veteran, I think their transition journey is a little bit different. But to me, that's the biggest struggle that most aren't talking about, is that isolation, that lack of purpose, that lack of vision of what should I be doing, and then helping them find that. So the goal and what we hope to help is, through the podcast, is we show that, one, that mental health issue that pops up is normal. You're going to see it. It's going to happen to you, but you can get through it. And as soon as you get through it, you're going to find fulfillment. You'll find things that are very different. And that's part of the reason why I've done the vets and real estate side of things, was that was a way I wanted to serve and give back, and is giving me more purpose. And mentoring agents was part of that, giving me purpose, was going out there. Going to go out there and make a ton of money? Absolutely. But making sure we train and find that purpose, that's what keeps you driving. That's what keeps you moving in that right direction. And I think that's what most veterans transitioning out of the military, regardless of real estate or accounting or whatever they go into, that's what they've got to figure out, is what is that purpose, and how do they start serving that new teammate?
Yeah. I'm hearing a lot of, you really want to spread the message of relatability and community and purpose-driven careers. And, for managing directors or even senior agents or mentors like yourself who have a veteran on their team, what do they need to understand about how veterans are wired differently, and what can they do if they maybe don't have that same experience to help them excel?
Yeah, I think one of the first things they can do is help build some type of game plan roadmap of what success looks like. We're trained in the military to sit down, look at a problem, follow the steps, follow the process, and start running with that. If we don't have it, then we struggle. I think that's one of the first things that comes in, is give them a roadmap of what success looks like, whether that is, here's your training program, here's how you go through, here's what your day-to-day should look like. Because remember, you're going from an organization that tells you what to dress and what color socks you can wear and how the proper way of tying a shoe or a boot is. You're going from that to, here's a phone, have fun. Drastically different. So if you can give some form of that function, that's going to help them absolutely more than what you'd ever think, giving them some type of roadmap, some type of what they're supposed to do. I think the other side of it as well is that sometimes veterans get, we don't communicate nearly as well. I'm trying my best not to curse while we're with you guys, right? The language is different. The bluntness is different. And I think being able to sit down and understand that it's not rude, it's not ugly. I did it this morning and didn't catch it. Is, I'm 15 years out of the service, but yet still that bluntness comes through, is understanding that's the case, and being able to work around that as well is going to be helpful. And I would say the other thing that keep in mind and to help them is understanding that work-life balance matters. In the military, you do the job till the mission's done. You don't go home until it's all done. Well, my to-do list is 8 pages long right now. I'm not working till 3:00 next week and then finally going home. So telling them it's okay to go home, giving them permission. And I know it sounds really strange, but giving permission, it's okay to go home. It's okay to come in a little late. It's okay to take a longer lunch if you need to. Those are completely counterintuitive ideas coming from the military, especially for somebody new transitioning out. Giving them permission to go home and be with their family, it's okay, and it's going to be welcome, because they're not thinking that. They're thinking they got to finish the mission.
It's like reframing a mentality, that's been instilled for so long. Well, when it comes to, because you're based in San Antonio, so we'll speak on that, but let's talk about the market overall. Let's dive into some of the nitty-gritty of what's happening in Central Texas, just across commercial real estate overall. And what are you kind of keeping your eye and honing on most closely?
So San Antonio's always been lucky because our highs are never that high and our lows are never that low. We've always been the safe market to invest in. And a lot of it is because tourism is our number one industry, in-state tourism. Everybody comes see the Alamo, Six Flags, go to the Riverwalk. Like everybody comes here for that. So tourism is always something that people are coming to San Antonio for, and it's really one of our largest drivers. Outside of that, it's military and government. You've got the joint base system here. You've got the training system for the Air Force that's here, and for Army, or all of Military Medical Command is here. You've got multiple, 2, 3, 4-star commands, general officer commands that are here located. So much of our market is really not exciting. I think that's the sad way to put it, is that it's slow, steady, exciting real estate where you buy something, it's going to appreciate 3 to 5% each year. It's a good, positive, solid returns. And we don't have the crazy up and downs where you just go 90 miles north to Austin. That can look, 6 months apart, can look like two completely different markets altogether. That's where San Antonio has been a little bit blessed on that one. I will say some of the things we are watching right now, given so much of our economy is based in the military, is one of the things that we've seen with the newest administration coming in is they've actually combined many military commands to kind of reduce some redundancy. And then we're actually looking at a few of those military commands that are here in San Antonio being relocated to North Carolina. Well, okay. That changes some of what we're looking at, changes some of the demand, changes some of the numbers of people that we've had. And then, that obviously impacts occupancy, residential real estate. It changes the landscape for a lot of us, especially when so much of our stability has been in and around being Military City, USA.
And with that in mind, I know that you tend to focus on medical offices and veteran-owned businesses. What's driving the medical office space specifically in San Antonio?
So for San Antonio, one of the things that we're lucky with is kind of our location. If you go about 2.5 hours south, maybe 3 hours south, you're hitting the border with Mexico, right? So we're more or less the furthest major city for most of Texas. You got El Paso on the other side of the state, but at least for this portion of the state, most of the more advanced or more specialized medical is here in San Antonio. So you have a lot of that coming up from south. You've got a lot of it coming kind of from east and west as well, and really become a nice hub when it comes to medical. Then we've got things like medical research that's going on that is now, so we've got a huge diabetes research center that's here. So a lot of the state-of-the-art stuff that's going on with diabetes research is being done here. And then going back to the military, we've got the military training for all medicals here. You've got one of the major military hospitals. So if a service member gets hurt overseas or they need extremely specialized treatment, all those treatment centers are here. So there's a big play between medical, military, all that that's going on as well, where all burn research is done here in San Antonio as well. So you have all these aspects of what's just naturally here. And then obviously you've got a population. Many people come here to retire. Many military come here to retire. So now you've just got more demand for medical. Our average age keeps going up and up and up just because of the retiree aspect that's here. So medical's always been strong for us. And I don't see that changing anytime soon.
I didn't realize how intertwined the military medical office space would have been. And that seems to be very unique to San Antonio. You spoke a little bit on Austin, right? How San Antonio market differs from Austin. What about if you were to kind of compare San Antonio to like Dallas or Houston? What differences or what makes San Antonio unique compared to those larger Texas markets as well?
Yeah, so obviously size is a little bit different, and if you look at Dallas, Houston, Austin, San Antonio's the not so exciting, youngest brother kind of sitting there in the group, right? Everybody's excited about Dallas because of the finance side or everything that's going on, in that aspect. Houston with oil and with tech and those things. And of course, Austin's Austin with all the technology, all the excitement that's going on, UT and all the stuff that they're pumping out as well. Drastically different. And when it comes to, Austin saw a good influx of many of the out-of-state folks that were coming in. So a lot of our California to New York that were coming in. Many of them were coming to Austin, and I get it. The vibe is there. The lifestyle that many of them, especially from California, were looking for was coming to Austin. It was there, and it was a very good cultural fit for them. So we saw a little bit of a difference that came there. When it came to Dallas, Dallas is massive. We say it's Dallas, but it's Dallas, Fort Worth. It's a 3 dozen other cities, in and around there as well. While finance is one of the main aspects, you still have aspects of cattle and oil that are still in the Fort Worth side of everything. So you've got a very diverse mix. And what you've seen, especially in the DFW Metroplex, is there's when one market is doing well, another may not, and they generally stay when one market, does go up, the other goes down, and they'd stay relatively steady. Houston's the interesting one because it's based so much on oil. Now they've got a huge medical research side of it, they've got education, they've got tourism, they've got all that as well, but so much of their economy is driven by oil that it's not uncommon to see oil start to get down to, 60, 50, $40 a barrel, God forbid. Houston starts to shut down. We start getting back up to 70, 80, dollars a barrel, then they're printing money and everybody's looking for space. So much of that economy is just impacted by oil. And of course, oil, with what we're doing domestically, what OPEC's doing, what we're seeing elsewhere, Venezuela, all the fun things that are going on with geopolitics, Houston's vastly susceptible to what goes on with one of the biggest drivers of that economy.
Whereas, as you described, San Antonio being the more stable. And hey, stability is sexy for some people, so it's worked. Well, you're building a commercial division at Phyllis Browning Company, right? Is historically more so known as a luxury residential firm. What's the biggest challenge that you've experienced kind of baking in that commercial division inside such a residential kind of culture?
Yeah, so I think especially maybe the challenge from us being luxury is that from a commercial or a luxury home, our price points are the same. And that's one of the things that's kind of strange to kind of go in, especially when we're going in, hey, where's your production? What do you mean it takes you 2 years to get an agent up and running? Whereas they could put half the resources into a luxury residential agent who's going to turn around and get a $2, $3, $5 million home listing, where it's going to take me, 18 months to get one of our new agents up to that level to where they're getting those kind of listings. So I think one of the first cultural things that's been interesting on that is just the time. It takes so much longer for us to close deals in commercial. It takes so much longer for us to train agents to get them to that point where if they're looking dollar for dollar, investing in a residential or luxury agent will produce them more money. But now also being smart and looking back and say, okay, we've got luxury, but we've got commercial over here. So when the luxury market goes down, the company has other aspects that are coming through. I will say training agents coming from a luxury background into commercial has been vastly interesting as well. And I get a lot of hate in the industry because I'm a big proponent of those residential agents absolutely can transition to commercial and absolutely kill it. Not every residential agent, but the ones that understand speed to the lead, understand all the bad habits that we in commercial have where, for them, if they don't call somebody back within an hour, it's a dead lead. I've got people I got a call back from yesterday still today, and I'm going to do that today. It's drastically different. But we've seen that those agents that have come through with that, I'm building the relationship, we're going to become friends, we're going to go through all the things that residential do so well. Applying that with commercial training, we've noticed that they just excel and they ultimately kill it when it comes to it. I would highly encourage anybody who's looking at trying to bring on that next generation of folks is look at the residential agents that have done well, build a training program for them to go and excel, and you'd be shocked at how well they're able to go out there and just kill it for you.
And like speaking on that training and that jump, because you've been so deeply involved in education, teaching different courses like CCIM and IREM, coaching agents like you just touched on and how you do that to help them succeed. What drew you to teaching? I know you spoke on it a little bit in the beginning, kind of coming from your military background, but what else has impacted your desire to teach, and why has it become like what seems like such a central part of your career?
I think it's just who I am. It's such a cop-out answer, right?
When you know.
Right. Prior to going to the military, I was actually going to seminary to be a minister. And what I loved about ministry and in that side of it was I loved the teaching and the writing curriculum and putting that stuff together. And what I've noticed, and it really honestly, it took until like 3 or 4 years ago for me to finally put this together after 25 years. I did, teaching and all that in the church beforehand. Very quickly, when I got in the military, I became the the trainer. I became the guy who go out to do people in. That was always just in my DNA of who I was. I was always that new trainer that came in. And then as I've, progressed into real estate, I've again found myself going right back to that role. So when I say it's who I am, it really is where I come. I'm blessed as well. I had a professor in my undergrad who was teaching some CE stuff and legal updates, all the boring stuff you got to do to keep your license. He was an attorney. He was teaching at the university, and he's like, "Hey, I can't teach all these. Do you want to jump in and cover some of these for me?" Sure. And then it went into me starting teaching more, and then taking further steps there. So to me, it's just always been something I've done, always been something I've enjoyed. And to me, the nice big fat commission check is great, but watching an agent have that light bulb moment and then go out there and close, even if it's a small deal, and the excitement that comes from them actually getting that deal, to me, that fills me up way more than a commission check. The commission check's great for the bank account, but for the soul, it's watching that agent get that first deal, get that complicated deal done for the first time. That's what does it for me.
Oh, that's amazing. It's like that coach mentality is as well, right? You win when your team wins. Well, for someone, who might be listening to this podcast and wants to get more involved in education or leadership, but feels like there's this amount of time that they don't necessarily have, what advice would you give them?
Don't do it. No. What I will say on the association side is that the moment you say yes, they're going to find a way to put you to work. As long as you're genuine about what you're doing, the association, the education, they're absolutely going to do it. That's both good and bad. I'm to the point now where I've got to keep telling them, no, I can't do more. I've got to focus on the business. I've got to grow things for my family. But it's those relationships you do build in that side as well. If your passion is really growing agents, the easiest way to start is taking the one agent in your office that's not doing so hot, tote them around, get them up and going, help them kind of get going from there. And if you enjoy it, then grab the next one and then grab the next one. And you'll start seeing that if that's really who you are, they'll start growing. They'll start kind of giving a bit of a following. They're going to start getting known for that in your market. And that's one of the things that I think in our market, if you're looking at transition and commercial, that's what I'm known as, is I am the guy who's going to help make you transition. If you start building that side of it out, by all means, they'll start coming, especially they see that you're truly passionate about their success and not trying to make money off of them. Once they see that, I think that's the key, that things start to grow, things start to change very differently if you're looking at doing more coaching and educating inside the industry.
True born leader, Will. Well, with that in mind, and to kind of come to close here, but don't think we're going to let you up that easy. You've let us know in your background, your expertise, what you're known for in the market and in the industry overall. But I'm sure there's still a few more curiosity elements and answers to a few rapid fire questions that we can send your way before we wrap things up here. And so we're going to hit you with a few of them if you're ready for some rapid fire around here. Okay. So I'm going to throw a big number at you. If you were given $50 million today and had to invest in it immediately, what would your go-to strategy be? Would it be value add, stabilize? I think I know the answer, just what you talked about San Antonio, but I'll let you answer. A specific neighborhood, and why? 50 million investing right now, go.
So, man, that's a good one. If I was going to go right now, one product type, I'm investing in office. And I know that's probably the one that goes, well, you're crazy. To me, if you have the staying power for office, and I think this is what we're going to see in the next 10 or 15 years, the people that are buying office now, buying at the bottom of the market, buying assets that nobody really wants, put the time, energy into them. 10, 15 years from now, when we're at the top of the office market again, God hope, we're going to see that. We're going to think, wow, those guys were geniuses. What they see beforehand, honestly, what they saw was that the market will eventually come back. We know that it's going to happen. So you buy good, solid office buildings that have some staying power, then I don't know. If that was me, that's exactly where I would go. Day one is from office.
All right, folks, you heard it here first from Will, so write it down. Okay, next one. What's the worst advice? We've talked a lot about your best, but what's the worst advice you've been giving about being successful in commercial real estate brokerage?
So my wife and I were actually talking about this the other day, which is funny, is and it's starting to come back around again, is that to go in debt to get rich, right? So go out there and buy the Mercedes or the expensive car, go join the country club, go do all those things because that's where the rich people hang out. And I think
So
there's some
true.
truth to it. But I also think if you're broke and you don't know if where you're going to get your next meal, or you don't know how your kids are going to get to school here in the next couple of weeks, that's terrible advice to go out there. And I think it's being disciplined, going out there, having a good, solid financial plan, and then going out there. So don't go into debt to try to close deals. Build your networks where you need to build your networks. And as your net worth grows, you can join those higher end clubs and organizations. You know, they talk about it as a ticket to admission. If you can't afford the ticket, then they're going to know pretty quickly that you really shouldn't be there.
Yeah, and I think on with the rise of social media and anyone has a voice and able to give advice, that's one that I've heard, and I tend to agree with you and your wife's. Well, okay, last one, and then we'll get close to letting you off the hook here. What's one contrarian belief you hold about the San Antonio market that most people in the industry might disagree with? And what makes you optimistic about your market, about the future of it?
So I think a lot of folks just overlook San Antonio because we're not a major media market. The biggest thing most people know is either the Riverwalk or the Spurs, right? That's most
Yeah.
people think of when they come here, right? You guys were here for Red River not long ago. We had a bunch of folks that were here for Red River, just not long ago, and that was one of the things. Okay, other than the Spurs and the Riverwalk, what else am I supposed to do? Well, San Antonio gets slept on because we're one of the top gastro tourism, meaning food. People come to San
Yeah.
Antonio to eat, which again, you probably wouldn't realize that's the case. And it's not the Michelin star stuff. It's the true Tex-Mex is where a lot of Tex-Mex was born here in San Antonio. So I think you see a lot of folks are coming here for other reasons that we just don't get noticed for nearly as much, which then drives more retail demand once that starts becoming a thing. So to me, that's the thing that probably gets slept on for San Antonio more often. There's so many other reasons to come here other than just come to watch a Spurs game or go see the Alamo. Go do those things as well, but there's so many other things, both cultural, which is just fascinating, the Hispanic and Mexican American culture that's here. And if you've looked into it, understand it, it's absolutely fascinating. It's such a beautiful culture to look at. And San Antonio is just completely immersed in that culture.
I noticed it as I was driving around that you will have so much new freeway development as well. So obviously, there's cars coming, and they need to make ways for them to get around. So that makes sense. Um, well, with that in mind, Will, I mean, it's been amazing getting to know you more and feeling like I got to know San Antonio more as well. As we wrap up here, like any last parting words you like to share with those that are listening?
No, I would say just, find what your passion is, whether you're military or civilian, go out there, find that passion, find that purpose, and just, start living for that. I think as you start moving through that side of things, life gets a lot easier once you really find that passion.
Yeah. Well, with that in mind, again, we thank you so much for joining us, Will, for sharing all your insights and valuable lessons you've learned along the way. I'm sure it'll help, many others as well. So we appreciate you spending the time. We know you have a lot going on. So as we exit here, where can people find you online if they want to get in touch? If email, social media, how can they reach out?
Yeah, I think the easiest thing is social media. I'm on just about every single one of them. Will Curtis CCIM is the handle for every single one of them. If you're looking for the vets in real estate side of things, it's just vets in RE or vets in real estate, vets in RE on just about all the same social media platforms as well. Those are the easiest way to get in touch with you. We have an admin that oversees all that. So if you reach out, somebody's going to get you taken care of pretty quickly.
Amazing. Well, thanks to everyone who tuned in today. If you enjoyed the episode, please let us know. Leave a comment, rating, or review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. For our full library of episodes and show notes, visit crexi.com/podcast. And you can also check out our YouTube channel as youtube.com/Crexi for video recordings of each episode. Take care and be sure to tune in next time. Thanks all.